everyone, and welcome back to the Big Picture podcast. Today, we have something very special lined up for you. None of the usual business of just ourselves arguing for an hour and a half. Oh, no, not today. Because today, we have a very special guest joining us to talk about Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four. Very exciting. But before I reveal who is joining us today, let's of course introduce the regulars. Our first panelist has been described as tall, clever, and flexible by a very important person in his life, me. It's our very own Mr. Fantastic, Jack.
When did you ever find out how flexible I was?
PG, sir. PG.
Jack, we have a guest, please.
No matter. I am doing very well. Happy to be here. Happy to talk about the Fantastic Four, considering it's going to be in the MCU going forward. It'll be a good topic of conversation, I believe.
Good stuff. Next, we have our very own 6 foot tall, blue-eyed rock man. For him, every time is clobbering time. Lewis, happy to have you on the show.
I'm happy to be here. Legit wish I was 6 foot tall, but hey-oh, can't have it all.
You have blue eyes, though?
No, Stewart, stop making me feel incompetent about myself.
Okay, swiftly moving on. Next, we have our most inflammatory member of the Big Picture, and anyone who plays Rocket League with him knows why he's the Human Torch, namely because half the team chat is censored. It's Adam. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm good, Stuart. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yep, very excited, chomping at the bit to hear all of your picks and your opinions.
Me too. Hopefully I can keep a cool head.
You're the Human Torch. And lastly, Reese is the Invisible Woman because he isn't here today. That's right, your People's Champion and Big Picture Champion has better things to do than sit here and talk about Marvel all day, which is why he's patched us to go and see Black Widow. So we have our heroes all introduced, but every hero needs a nemesis, a Joker, a Moriarty, or in this case, a Doctor Doom. And I can't think of a guest who will challenge our panel more than the producer of first-time films, full-time football, and FTTV. It is the one and only Mr. David Campbell. Welcome back, David.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be back. After the Batman versus Superman show, I've been so excited to get back here because I really enjoyed that one. Holly Hunter, I've never looked at her the same. I've never talked about Holly Hunter so much on one podcast. So hopefully I have a similar life-changing experience today. I'm much looking forward to it.
Good stuff. I can hear people frantically scribbling Holly Hunter into their fan casts in any way, shape or form. But glad to have you, David. Before we move on, imagine, if you will, that I am an idiot that has been sitting in a cave, not listening to what Lewis has to say and not listening to what anyone else has to say. And I think, David Campbell, where do I know that name from? Tell me what you're about.
Well, probably nowhere. Like you said, I do produce some podcasts on the internet, the football one when they can be bothered, and because it's mostly Celtic fans, usually when Celtic are winning, which is why it's went quieter recently. I also have directed a film, 10 Reasons Not to Make a Movie, hoping to get that in festivals down south, still waiting some confirmation for that. And I'm also on Eat Sleep Suplex, which meets a panelist over there, and most recently a competitor in the First Class League, which, if you don't know, is like the NXT of the movie Trivia Schmodown. I'm competing over there as the Dynasty. I have a 1-1 record currently because I lost by 1 point in my last match, which was very upsetting. But we will continue on and hopefully have my next match in that soon.
Amazing. And that, listeners, is why there's no better choice to judge our panelists on today's topic, the Fantastic Four. So for those that don't know, the Fantastic Four are a Marvel superhero team composed of 4 characters. Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, who can stretch better than Elastigirl. Sue Storm, aka the Invisible Woman, who in a shocking twist can turn invisible. Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, a man who can catch fire and fly. They were really reaching for some of these superpowers in the 60s, but hey-ho, they were all in LSD. And Ben Grimm, a.k.a. The Thing, who is basically the Hulk, but made of stone, unless you were me as a child who thought he was made of chocolate. So they gained these superpowers after being exposed to cosmic rays during a science mission to space, of all places, but have gone on to be a key part of the Marvel franchise for the past 60 years. So we asked our fans whether they were excited about the Fantastic Four finally showing up in the MCU, and an overwhelming 89% of you said that you were, with a mere 11% of you saying that there's too much going on with, out this terrific three or famous five or whatever the hell they are showing up. MCU's got their hands full, but we say no, because we want the Fantastic Four back home. We've had years and years of Fox, shitting in their hands and pasting it all over the screen. We're done with that. It's a new era, a new beginning. So we're not just talking about the history of the Fantastic Four here, because as you know, the panel has to personally pitch an idea in order to be crowned this week's winner. And that idea is who they would like to be cast as the titular heroes in the newly announced reboot of the Fantastic Four that will be taking place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But before we get to that, let's get some discussion going. We're all friends here, we'll just roll it back a second here, but we will go for the first question to our illustrious guest, David. Are you excited that the Fantastic Four are finally being introduced into the MCU?
I think that if there's a company that can make it work, it is, Marvel Studios. I think, like you alluded to, Fox really dropped the ball with the Fantastic Four. Back in the day, Fantastic Four was one of the most popular Marvel comics. It was one of their earliest success stories, and it's a franchise that has been calling to have a really, really good movie, a really good theatrical run for some time. The rights were acquired in the 80s. They tried to make a movie in the 90s. They then had those movies in the 2000s and the 2010s, and it's never quite hit the way that they wanted it to, and it should be such a surefire thing. And I think, for me personally, Kevin Feige, as far as a studio producer goes, is a legendary name. He's by far the most prolific producer of the 21st century so far. He took Iron Man, who I would argue at the time was a far less popular comic book character than the Fantastic Four were, and he made him the cornerstone of what would become one of the biggest selling film franchises of all time. Now, with Iron Man gone, with Captain America gone, you have Marvel's first family coming back. They could be the new linchpins of this universe, and I would argue the way it's going, they do need that central character. They need that central core back in there. I think they could fill a void in the MCU that is missing, and with Kevin Feige involved, with all the talent involved so far that we've heard of, I'm very excited about it, I have to say. Good
stuff. It does seem that Marvel, and particularly many thanks to Kevin Feige, that they can't do wrong. They bring any character on screen and, it just works. They've got it nailed down. So Adam, what about yourself? You're a big comics fan, maybe not necessarily a big Fantastic Four comics fan, but as a comics fan nonetheless, are you excited about them coming to the MCU?
Yeah, I'm excited to hopefully see them done justice. I think, as David says, we can actually hope for a faithful representation. I think David had mentioned a lot of the films. They actually did have a very successful TV show in the 90s, which ran alongside the Spider-Man show, which everyone knows I'm a big fan of, and X-Men as well. And it was very strong, and I think that's a sign that there was a lot of demand for it at the time. People loved the Fantastic Four, and I just think it's a shame they fade into obscurity a bit. I think they're not as much of a household name these days. I think just because of how poorly they've been represented on screen. So I think, yeah, as a fan of the comics, you generally find that the Fantastic Four, they've almost got a hand in everything. At least one character is involved in every kind of Marvel event. If it's big, the Fantastic Four are involved, especially Reed Richards. So I think, as David says, they're set up to be the new linchpin. There's plenty of comic material to draw upon, so I'm just hoping that it's third time lucky.
Very interesting. Hopefully. So Lewis and Jack, what about yourselves? Are you happy for this team to be coming home?
Yeah, it's a real. I mind going to see the Fantastic Four the first time round, and obviously a wee kid and you don't know much about it. It's just cool seeing a guy stretch his arm out so far and doing weird stuff with it. Think about it, we watched that the first time, what you can do going that length now, that kind of weird shit, who knows. But with it being in the MCU, with the kind of the possibilities of what we've seen in MCU of the past, like with the Avengers and all coming together, and the films and the production, the story, it can bring so much more promise And as has been said previous by the other two there, that they do need a kind of central polarizing figure family for the rest of the MCU to take off with. And I believe Fantastic Four is going to be the last film of this phase we're in right now of the movies, and that maybe kind of will set up the future phases, and it will show how pivotal they will be to the MCU. And we're already getting that feeling in shows when we've watched WandaVision and other shows as well, that you're getting that feeling that they're coming, and they are going to be really big at that point.
Yeah, I find myself in agreement with almost everybody here, although my excitement's maybe a bit dull just because of fear of the fact that this ball has never been picked up and ran with. It's always kind of been stumbled. I think Marvel's kind of getting away for some of the ensemble films. I mean, obviously we've got the Eternals coming as well, but I think the Fantastic Four is that sort of, it's still known to the general people and could really be the next big launching point for the next sort of series of films or whatever they decide to do with that. And as Adam says, there's a lot of crossover possibility with the fact that they are ingrained and involved with everything. One thing that I think needs to be given justice for Stan Lee's name and sake, yes, the Marvel is done amazing, but Stan Lee made it known that Fantastic Four was some of his favorite work that he'd done. Spider-Man being his favorite, they're all very crossover and linked too. So I'm hesitant to say I'm excited just because of fear, but the potential for the Fantastic Four, if done right, to be the next big thing is palpable, to say the least.
Good stuff. A lot of trepidation, but a lot of excitement here, and I think a lot of people share all of your thoughts and all of your hopes for this, because we've, as Jack mentioned, there's been a couple of films before, and we'll stick with you, Jack, because you mentioned it. But these characters have shown up in the big screen a number of times. What's your overall opinion on the previous films that they've been in?
When I first watched it, as I said, when I was younger, I really enjoyed the film. It was probably the first time you'd seen like a kind of a group of superheroes together fighting villains, and maybe the kind of the teamwork side of it I really enjoyed, and you think maybe something more will come of that. I really enjoyed Doctor Doom as well in the first film. I felt the character portrayal for him was really good. I can't make the actor's name off the top of my head, unfortunately, so I look like an idiot, but that's by the by. It was still very good. The Rise of Silver Surfer, it was alright, but again, was young, still watched it. Then I got older, wiser, more of a geek, and it more just an absolute kind of tit. And when this new Fantastic Four came out, I've hands up, I've not watched it. I've not wanted to watch it. I've just got the impression that it's a steaming hot pile of shit, and it's just terrible. The nothing from the press about it sells me and wanting to see that movie. The trailers don't sell me wanting to see that movie. The marketing, none of it. There's nothing to that movie that makes me want to see it.
Lewis, some bold words there, and you love a good superhero film, right? Any love for the Fantastic Four's time with Fox?
It's hard for me to say yes, because I remember watching the Fantastic Four, the first one in 2005. Hopefully that's correct. And being caught with this feeling of, well, that was okay. But this was also coming off the back of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, which had been made, as well as the first Hulk movie, which had already been made and released. And I think even some of those movies don't stand quite as tall, but they still dwarf the Fantastic Four, in my opinion. Silver Surfer was just not good. And then the latest one with Michael B. Jordan, Kate Mara, Miles Teller, and I forget the last one, Jamie Bell, I think it is. It was on Netflix. I was like, you know what, this is going to come up at some point, so I'll give it a watch. I couldn't get through it. For 20 minutes, I turned it off. I was just like, nope, can't do it. So unfortunately, I am going to be towing the line of no love, no love.
Dear oh dear, not a lot going for this franchise out of the gate. David, you're the authority on movies as far as we're concerned. Jack and Lewis's opinion means nothing to me, less than nothing. So give us your opinions on the Fantastic Four franchise so far.
Yeah, the thing is with Fox, they have such a mixed track record of superhero movies because I think the X-Men franchise went through more ups and downs than bloody gymnastics instructor during sex. You know what I mean? It's a tough roller coaster they've went on. The 2005 film, and having said that, Rise of the Silver Surfer as well, I think it lined up at a time in the mid 2000s where superhero movies didn't need to necessarily be big blockbusters. Like at that time, you still had action movies that were doing it, a lot of family fare. Tim Story directed this one, whose other works include The Barber Shop, Ride Along 2. He's got Ride Along 3 coming out. He'll just ride that franchise along until he dies, probably at this point. So you know exactly what you're getting for him. It was very comedy heavy, didn't really lean into the pathos of it, but you know what? Enjoyable for what they were for the most part. And I actually think bringing the Silver Surfer in was a good idea on paper. It just didn't quite work. I think with the 2015 Fan Four Stick, it's one of those things where I think Fox knew kind of what they wanted at first. This dark, gritty take on Fantastic Four, which Josh Trank directed Chronicle, you know what I mean? Which is a very sort of realistic take on what would happen if superpowers were in the real world. And we've seen that story a lot since, but it was one of the first things to do it. But I think Fox at one point shat the bed and we're just like constantly trying to re-edit the movie, retune the story. Josh Trank's been very open about the fact, I think he tweeted before the movie came out, do not go and see this movie because this isn't my complete vision. You know what I mean? So you know as soon as the director's turning on the film before it's even got released that something has went very, very wrong down the line. And I just think that it goes to show that Fox, for as much good as they've done in cinema, and they're one of the biggest film studios for a reason, their superhero franchises, they never really had a concrete plan of where to go with them. Like the X-Men franchise went through a lot of reboots. Fantastic Four, they never got to grips with. So mixed bag of results from the previous films, but I think Fan Four Stick was really the death nail in the Fantastic Four coffin at Fox.
You know, I'll have to admit, I've never actually seen the reboot of, as you called it, Fan Four Stick. And I was like, why did I not go and see this? And I was like, oh yeah, the director literally told me not to via Twitter.
Yeah.
Just showed the
when that
faith.
happens, you're not going to do it. You know what I mean? You're just not going to do it.
So he would know. You know, he made it. Do you know what? More directors should be honest. You know what? I'd be very happy for directors to just come out and say, look, listen, it's not worth your time. Just sit this one out.
I want someone to say, listen, I've made a very 7 out of 10 film here, right? So just go and see it. Or someone that's like, I've made a Fast and Furious movie. It is what it is. It's a Fast and Furious movie. Instead of pretending that Vin Diesel's like, oh, we should win an Oscar for this. You know what I mean? Like you say, just be honest, you know.
Instead of all these Vin Diesel memes that Jack keeps sending.
Oh, come on now.
Day in, day out. Now.
They are fantastic. They are fantastic. Not the Fantastic Four, but they are fantastic.
Go see Fast and Furious with your family.
Right, enough. Adam, get us away from this. Because it's been announced that the director of the MCU Spider-Man movies, such as Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, he will be helming this reboot. And I want to ask you, is he a good pick, in your opinion? Or do you maybe have someone else in mind?
I can't say I've got anyone else in mind, you know, off the top of my head. But I would say that I think it is a good choice. I think in terms of what we want from the Fantastic Four, and I think you look at the Spider-Man films in the MCU, you look at Homecoming and especially Homecoming, to be honest, and the way that used the comic material so well, and it wasn't afraid to go for the Vulture and really like lean on that, and it works so well in the first one. And you and me both love Mysterio and Far From Home. Absolutely fantastic use of the character. So I think that makes me excited, because one of the things that we just talked about, how we're not really going into detail, I think, about like why maybe we thought these films were bad. And one of the reasons I think is that they just waste Doctor Doom. We've never had I just think that he just always falls a bit flat. And I think that's something that's missing. And I think that we've seen that this director can do great villains and use the comic material really well. So I think that makes me excited, because I do want to see a good Doctor Doom. I mean, I agree with Jack. I didn't mind. It was Julian McMahon was Victor Von Doom in the First one, Jack. There you go.
It should have been Vince McMahon. Imagine Vince McMahon as Doctor Doom.
Oh wow! Now you're talking. Don't spoil your.
I'm
Don't
gonna
give
take
away
the
your
Fantastic
facts.
Don't
Four
go your-
inside hell in a cell.
There is no bigger villain. That's true.
Yeah, he wasn't bad, but I think he was maybe written quite a poor character, and I think with the tone of the film, it didn't really work. And Fantastic, Jesus, it's so bad. It just so forgettable. And I just think that if we get, I think one of the things that's so good about Fantastic Four is Doctor Doom. I think that, Doctor Doom is one of the best villains in the whole of Marvel Comics, and there's a reason he's used in other, he appears in so many other stories as well. And then when it comes to big plots, he's always involved as well. He's the villain, Fantastic Four. He's always got a hand in a big plot and a big event. So I think if we get a good Doctor Doom, then I'll be very happy.
I have to jump off what Adam said there because, like you said, Victor Von Doom, he doesn't just have his finger in all the pies. He has his finger in every bloody pastry going, you know what I mean, in the Marvel Universe. And I think in a world without Thanos, I'm actually more excited, I'd say, for Doctor Doom coming into the MCU than the Fantastic Four, because you can set him up in Fantastic Four, but do not one and done Victor Von Doom for me, people. You know what I mean? We need Doctor Doom in the Marvel Universe, whether it be as the overarching villain or just a constant presence or someone people can go to, a sort of in between. Maybe he's the ruler of his own nation in the comics at one point, you know what I mean? So he's a character they can do so much with. And I think when they're looking to establish a new status quo with the MCU, Victor Von Doom is vitally important to do that.
Well, I mean, like you said, Doctor Doom, he has the presence, and you need a director that can really put that presence just in every part of the film, because like Adam said, without Doctor Doom, the Fantastic Four, it doesn't really have, it's not firing on all cylinders like the other ones. Lewis, do you think there's any better picks for a director in your opinion?
Yeah, probably not. But I think the biggest concern for me when it comes to these sort of Disney movies is it is kind of known that Disney are pretty set in what they want to see. And in that case, they haven't really put a foot wrong at this point. They do kind of give a bit of freedom, kind of flashback to the Ant-Man director fiasco. You want somebody who's been involved and one that is willing to take the backstory of the character and make it the forefront of the story, which is obviously what they're going for here. But Disney wants some yes men, in my opinion. I'm going to say it. Disney want people to do what they want them to do, and if the guy's going to do it, the guy's going to do it.
Jack, do you like yes men? Do you like no men? What men do you want for Fantastic Four?
I just want a good Fantastic Four film. You know what I mean? Like as I've said before, I enjoyed it when I was younger, but I was none the wiser of what a good comic book movie should be. And getting older, and you've got a better appreciation for the cinema niche of superhero films, so to speak. You're grown up to have some sort of expectancy, and if done right, Fantastic Four could meet those expectations and more. I want them to be I want the Fantastic Four to be the next big great thing in the MCU, and I think it can absolutely be done right, and I think it can be done justice, and I think folk will be clamouring. It deserves to be clamoured to have multiple movies, much like other beloved superhero characters and films that you've seen before. I want someone to make that happen. I'm happy with who it is just now, as you were talking about how Mysterio was done in Far From Home. I want Doctor Doom to be like that again. You have faith in that kind of director to produce a good movie, as we've already seen. So make it happen.
Interesting. We'll go back to you, Lewis, because you have admitted you're someone who's a bit more wary of the MCU and the superhero genre as a whole. But with the MCU, we've at least seen it branch out a little bit and add other genres to their films. So it's not just a superhero film. You know, you've got a hint of heist films in Ant-Man, or a sprinkle of political thriller with Captain America. Would you like to see a genre added to the mix for the Fantastic Four?
I made it no secret to you, Stuart, when I seen that question. I was actually quite excited about it. I did think about Here's a video essay about the answer to my question. But no, I started kind of looking back to kind of think, what has been done? You kind of had your buddy cop drama with Falcon and Winter Soldier, the countless sitcom references and WandaVision, and so many other things about the movies. But and this is going to be such a me answer too, when I seen that question, the first movie that came into my head of all movies was Seven. And I want to see that sort of thriller, smaller scale, whodunit, really gritty story involving Doctor Doom just having his little fingers and everything. I instantly made that connection. I was like, that's what I want. I want Seven, but done by Marvel.
Detective.
TV.
Just minus Kevin Spacey.
I was going to say we won't get Kevin Spacey back. But no, that's very interesting because that's not a genre that I would have ever thought with the Fantastic Four. So, do you think?
Don't get me wrong. I don't want a clip of what's in the box or with some graphic detail of I don't know, someone's head in a box. But there's a way you could go about doing it, putting that Marvel sort of I don't want to say family spin on it, because how do you turn Seven into a family movie? God, I'm really
They'll try.
Yeah, they'll try. But that's what I'm saying. Just take that kind of premise and just dial it down a little bit. Get Morgan Freeman in there too. Why not?
Morgan Freeman would be class. I have a fear with what Lewis is saying though, because for me, what doesn't work with the Fantastic Four is dark and gritty. For me, the Fantastic Four is colourful. You know what I mean? It's like old age Marvel. It's space age. It's exciting. I would say if you're going down the sort of murder mystery route, save Seven for a Moon Knight or something like that. I think there's characters that could suit that aesthetic a bit better, and I'd happily see Morgan Freeman or Brad Pitt back, because who doesn't want to see Brad Pitt? But maybe a Knives Out sort of feel to Fantastic Four for me would be more apropos. But having said that, Seven's a fantastic film.
I'm just trying to think who would be the murder victim in all of these. You need somebody big, but somebody that nobody cares about dying.
The Baxter, they say in the Baxter building, don't they? So Mr. Baxter could be just Mr. Baxter.
The landlord.
Baxter the dog. Baxter.
You don't get any sympathy for the landlord being killed here.
Yeah.
Lisa.
I love it.
It's this big plot about a supervillain that's killing landlords, but everybody loves him so much he becomes a superhero.
Marvel would still find a way to make him the villain. You know what I mean? They made the working class guy who had the contract ripped from him the villain in Spider-Man Homecoming. They'll still find a way to villainize the working class. Don't worry about Marvel for that.
It was Tony Stark, and it was related to Tony Stark as well. Tony Stark was just smoking and flicked his cigarette in the guy's eye. Let's make this movie. I'm happy.
Big ploy for me to get Marvel made by Cluedo.
Cluedo, that's the name. Oh, yes, just make Marvel Cluedo.
Let's remake Clue. Let's bring back Susan Sarandon, Tim Curry, Christopher Lloyd. Let's get them all back.
I agree. What about you, Jack?
What I want to see with the Fantastic Four is a Fantastic Four movie, but in the style of Hitch. And you could see Richard Reed as the kind of Will Smith character, but the way he's talking about picking up girls, he's talking about science, and then just failing expertly trying to get Sue Storm. I think that'd be hilarious. I'd watch that.
Will Smith is Jack's casting choice is Reed Richards, if you've not got that.
Will Smith plays every role in my Fantastic Four recast.
The Doctor Doom's mask is just one of those paper cut-out Will Smith masks that people wear.
It's the mask from Suicide Squad.
Oh, right, that's enough. Thank you for ruining my question. Oh, right. Before we move on to the pitches, I'd like to ask our guest, David, as a lover of both film and TV, we're seeing the MCU reach new heights with their Disney Plus shows. WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Loki, they're all, something different, and they're doing something unique. Do you think that the Fantastic Four might benefit more from a movie franchise or a streaming series like on Disney Plus?
Movie. The Fantastic Four needs, and you can say what you want about the age of streaming and stuff like that. I very much enjoy the streaming shows for the most part. I'd probably rank them WandaVision my favourite. Loki, I'm a bit iffy with right now, I'll be honest with you. But you need that. You see billboards, right? We need the advertising campaign for Fantastic Four. We need people to get excited about them again. Because the reason people are coming to these streaming shows, I think, is because we know Loki. We want a wee jaunt with Tom Hiddleston. We know Wanda. Let's give her a bit more to do. This wee character study piece over here. We need the epic Fantastic Four movie to really launch them out the gate. If we're going to make a go of the Fantastic Four, you need to do it in the cinemas, and you need it to make money as well. And I do think there's money to be made with the Fantastic Four from Disney's perspective. Otherwise, people were like, oh, they bought Fox, they bought that for X-Men. Well, no, they bought Fox because it was a good deal first and foremost overall. But secondly, the Fantastic Four is just as much a commodity if done right for Disney, and it needs to happen in cinema.
David, you think Disney's not making money on Disney Plus? This new Black Widow film cost you 30 quid to bloody watch it. People are going to pay that because people are idiots.
It's the subscription model, and obviously they're getting it from the monthly subscribers. But I also think, to your point, there'll be a number of people who will wait till Black Widow is free to view in Disney Plus and view it that way, rather than, take out a small mortgage to go and see a 7 out of 10 Marvel movie at home. You know what I mean? I'm a Limitless card member. That's why I went to see it at the Odeon. You know what I mean? I'm getting a good deal.
Does anyone have any counter arguments to that? Does anyone think it would be a good streaming show?
No, I don't. I think it'd be too much for a slow burner. If it was on a TV show, I think there'd be too much that they'd be trying to do to make it happen, and then you'd rush it near the end. Whereas I think in a film they could probably pace the building of everything better. I feel as if it'd be for what they probably want the Fantastic Four to be. I just feel like a TV show it'd be too slow in setting that up.
This is no offense to the other shows that we've got. David kind of touched on it there. WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki. These are not sub characters, because that's unfair. These are not the top tier. And to me, Fantastic Four is top tier, and it needs that sort of epicness that a large scale movie release can create, that buzz, as well as the fact that they are still to this day, to a degree, a known commodity to your general public. You need the grandioseness of a theater release. I don't think a TV show could do it justice, just because it wouldn't have that same level of buzz around it.
Interesting. So, yeah, it just seems to be like you guys want a movie, and that's fair enough, because I'd want a movie. I agree with a lot of what you guys are talking about. I don't think it's pretty much a big bombastic welcome home if it's just been shunted to the streaming service. So hopefully we get a movie. But if we want to have a movie, we need to have actors to cast them. So with that, let's crack on to the pitches. Now, ordinarily, the guys would usually give their pitches and then send me their votes on who they think deserves to win, but not today, because we have a guest. And it will, in fact, be them that will be judging your pitches and ultimately deciding on this week's winner. Now, David, I've seen these choices, and I must say, these are some great pitches. The lads have outdone themselves. You definitely have your work cut out for you today. So, David, are you ready?
I am more than ready, and I'm ready to be surprised. I hope someone comes in here with what seems like a left field pick and just totally convinces me that it's going to work. That's what I'm really looking forward to today.
You hear that, guys? David's looking for Holly Hunter, Kevin Spacey.
No, Kevin Spacey. I never once said Kevin Spacey. Anyone mentions Kevin Spacey is an automatic disqualification, I'll tell you that.
Well, okay, you've heard him here. I'll give you a minute to scratch.
Live on air.
Yep, there you go. Shunted to the streaming service. With that, Lewis, you have actually not faced David Campbell in the ring, so to speak, because you made up about having COVID last time he was here. So, in the effort of fairness, you're up first. Lewis, who are your picks to be the Fantastic Four?
Right. Well, David's talking about left field. I'm a bit upset because we're going to stick with my original pick. Stewart knows what I'm talking about here, and maybe I'll reveal posthumously at some point. But when I was coming up with casting ideas, it was a combo of who I thought would fit the role based on the type of movie I'd like to see. And obviously, I can't mention that being kind of civid, but maybe a Knives Out, like David said, would be better. But what I'll do is I'll give a list of who I've picked and then a summary as to why, and some summaries will in fact be shorter than others. So my choices are as follows. For Mr. Fantastic, I have cast Ewan McGregor. For the Invisible Woman, I have chosen Yvonne Strahovski. For the Human Torch, I have cast John Boyega. And for the Thing, I have The Rock. And for Doctor Doom, I have Viggo Mortensen. Hope I pronounced those names right. But I've chosen Mr. McGregor for Mr. Fantastic because I feel like he can play that level of lead in a movie as well as give the complexity required for that, a brain runs a million miles an hour character that sometimes can't see the forest for the trees. Ewan is, in my opinion, a fantastic actor. A range I think is often overlooked. It would also bring a sort of safe, strong pair of hands to have a franchise launch with. For the Invisible Woman, I chose Yvonne Strahovski. Some may not know who that is. She was a key lead in a show in the mid-2000s or 2010, I can't remember the dates, called Chuck. A nice little comedy, but has also done other works in her native Australia, as well as shows like Dexter and more recently The Handmaid's Tale, which she actually won a Primetime Emmy for Best Supporting Actress. So on Netflix comes a strong recommendation, just not from me. So if you don't like it, not my fault. She's recently in a large movie, The Chris Part, which I've been reading that hasn't done well, but it doesn't seem to be for her fault. So venturing into film with a talent in comedy with Chuck and performances and voice acting and Mass Effect. Do not underestimate how good she was in that, as well as the dramatic skills in Dexter and The Handmaid's Tale. I think she would flourish and actually steal the show in that one. Moving on to the Human Torch, as I mentioned, John Boyega, similar to Yvonne and Ewan, incredible acting talent, maybe not full on display in a Star Wars stint. Don't think that's really his fault. He gets the comedy of these movies. He's drama capable of depth and brings some complexity to the Human Torch, which I think is often shortchanged in Fantastic Four. Plus, given his experience with Disney and large franchises, he'll be an invaluable help to adapting others towards such a large-scale project. Rounding off the team itself, this was not my first pick. I have someone else in mind, but I'm going to stick with this. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the potential for Stone, Pebble, Rock, Boulder, and other jokes are at his peak, and I can't really let that slide. And for your wrestling buffs out there, there's maybe even a Nation of Domination pun available. And finally, rounding off the cast, I have chosen the fantastic Viggo Mortensen as Doctor Doom. Most people know him as Aragorn from The Lord of the Rings. This man's talent is undeniable. Given some of his recent work and projects, I feel like he'd be a strong selection and bring depth and complexity to Doctor Doom, which I think has been missed, as he is, to a degree, a sympathetic villain. And gonna allow the audience to be more into him as a character, as well as the actual film itself. Now, age is obviously of slight concern. The man is 60. Personally, I don't really care, but I know for some people that can be a big deal. So some hair and makeup could easily walk around that. So those are my choices. Feels a pretty strong lineup to create a pretty awesome movie.
Very interesting. Some solid choices there. David, you have the floor. What are your thoughts on Lewis's picks?
Oh, Viggo excites me, Lewis, I have to say. As soon as you said that, I just perked up over here. I did a wee dance, I did a wee jig in my room. I think Viggo Mortensen is a perfect pick from an acting perspective in your movie to start as Victor Von Doom. However, you touched on the criticism of his age. I don't think that's a criticism of the character. I think you could play it with an older Victor Von Doom here. I think that could be really interesting. My question to you is this. I have made it very clear in the first half. I'd like to see Victor Von Doom as a cornerstone of the MCU going forward. It can't just be a one-and-done villain. I think that'd be a disservice to the character. You look at Viggo, Captain Fantastic 2016, Green Book 2018, Fallen 2020. He's very selective about his projects. He doesn't work a hell of a lot these days. Do you think that could be a problem availability-wise to really capitalise on the character of Doctor Doom?
No, it wasn't something I particularly thought about. With Disney's contracts and with the amount of money they have available to them, I'm sure you could do some convincing with some zeros. You know what I'm saying? But the man did work heavy back-to-back with Lord of the Rings, so he is capable. But I mean, throw some extra zeros on there, I'm fine with that.
That's fair enough. Everybody's got a price, as they say. I need to come to Yvonne Strahovski, which I do think is a really interesting shout for the Invisible Woman, because I think you've got a lot of sort of banner stars up there, and she's someone who hasn't really sort of had her day in the sun when it comes to a film perspective. You talked about her TV career, but she starred in the underwhelming movie The Predator that came out, which was a steaming pile of crap, and she wasn't actually that good in it either. She had an underwhelming display in The Tomorrow War. Once again, sort of, please defend her credentials to me for this project, because I do think The Handmaid's Tale, she is great in that. I've managed to catch some of her work in that. But as far as films go, she really hasn't shone so far when she's been put under that spotlight.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, she's definitely shining in the TV world. Maybe it's a comfort thing, but there's definitely going to be a level of exposure to these sort of projects. One thing I probably will say is that the movies were shit regardless if she was or wasn't in them anyway. So there's probably a level of forgiveness required in that regard. So, I'm not going to say she might be. I mean, I haven't seen the recent one with Chris Pratt. I have no desire to do so, considering even IGN gave it a 3 out of 10, and they give everybody a 10 out of 10. So
they do.
I'm not. I get the. Honestly, I did change the pick from her as well, but I feel strong enough about her talent given direction, especially. Obviously, the director's going to be a big call for this. I mean, the director's obviously done marvelous work with Spider-Man. I think, especially with the director and the helping hands of a John Boyega and a McGregor, and even like The Rock kind of takes some pressure off. I know it's The Rock. It wasn't my first pick. First pick would have been Brendan Fraser. But yeah, I think combined everything around, Yvonne would have been great.
Oh my God. What have you done, Lewis? I really wish you'd said Brendan Fraser now, because you're not going to like this last question. I have to say, Ewan McGregor with her, solid anchor. Can't argue with Ewan. He's no stranger to big franchises, coming back as Obi-Wan. No stranger to superhero movies. He had a great run as the villain, the Black Mask and Birds of Prey. Loved him in that, John. John Boyega, can't argue with. I have concerns over The Rock. The Rock is such a large presence that he tends to take over whatever project he is in the public's perception, but as well as behind the scenes. He loves to produce his own work. He loves to have a specific level of control. He loves to do things a certain way. He wants involved. This is Marvel. This is Kevin Feige. Could you see behind the scenes conflicts if you bring in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the Thing in this Fantastic Four movie?
As long as Vin Diesel's not involved, I don't see an issue.
That's fair enough. Who would win in the fight, Dwayne Johnson or Vin Diesel?
Doesn't matter. It's not allowed in their contract, so that question will be answered.
That's very good. No further questions. I rest for now.
It depends what Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson did to harm Vin Diesel's family. I think you'll find depends on the level of response there, but fantastic.
Is that what you think, Stuart?
That's what I think.
It doesn't matter what you think.
Oh, damn it!
He got you, you jabroni. He got you.
Check yourself into the SmackDown hotel.
I heard Kevin Spacey somewhere in his pitch, but anyway, some great discussion there. Any other panelists have any thoughts on Lewis's picks?
I was really surprised with your Doctor Doom pick. Vigo was not a name I expected to hear in any Fantastic Forecast, and I'm like, I wouldn't be annoyed at it. I feel that if say Kevin Feige went to The Rock, I mean, we want you to be in the Fantastic Four, I think that he'd be like, all right, I want to be Richard Reed, or I'm not doing it. I don't think you'd want to do not the thing is like a side character. I think that as David said, The Rock would want to be the focal point. You'd want to be the main man, and I don't think the thing is the main man in the film. But I was happy with your other choices.
I appreciate that. I would try and defend The Rock, but at the end of the day, the guy's been typecast as the military brood in every single film. So the guy can take the thing, or we can go to Brendan Fraser.
I don't think Dwayne Johnson's ever been offered that choice. Look, Dwayne. It's either you or Brendan Fraser. All right, ball's in your court.
And The Rock
should be offered that choice.
I agree. Lewis, I was an impartial host. I may have hinted at your choices. But at the end of the day, your picks are your picks, and they are locked in. So with that, let's move on to our next panelist. And you know what? I'm going to be a good host, and I'm going to let our guest pick who goes next. David, who would you like to hear from next?
For once, the power is with me. For once in my life, I would like to see Jack go next.
Oh shit! Prepare to be disappointed.
Jack, take it away.
So I feel that I've maybe gone safe with a couple, maybe not so left field with a couple, and then one maybe quite a bit left field. So I'll go with, I think, no surprise, I want my Mr. Fantastic to be John Krasinski. Brilliant casting leading the action movies he's been in recently, like Jack Ryan, 13 Hours. He's someone that's kind of like tailor made, or like looks wise, to be Richard Reed, Mr. Fantastic. And I feel that you need that cornerstone of a lead actor in this movie to carry the Fantastic Four, the franchise, and potentially MCU phase after phase from this point. And I think he is a brilliant man to do it. A commanding presence in a film like this is needed, and I think John can provide that. And I also think Sue Storm needs to have a commanding presence as well, and not kind of be objectified or sexualized that she might have been in previous movies. And I believe we'll get that with Charlize Theron. I would like her to be Sue Storm, because she's got the perfect look to play her as well, kind of comic accurate, but she also carries that commanding presence like we've seen in the Fast and Furious movies, Mad Max Fury Road, Atomic Blonde. She's very strong-willed, and she would come across as someone that you wouldn't want to mess with, and that's the kind of the Sue Storm I would want in my Fantastic Four movie, because it's quite deserving and showing of the true powers that be, rather than just some sexualized figure in a movie. I feel that for the Human Torch, someone that's a bit of a kind of the comic side actor of the Fantastic Four, a bit hot-headed, likes a laugh, chats up the girls, and I feel that in this movie, Zac Efron would be perfect to play the Human Torch. As a bit of a hothead, he's probably at the top of the list for a lot of the folk to be the Human Torch in the Fantastic Four. But you've seen him in movies like Bad Neighbours. He's been like Mike and Dave, We Need Wedding Dates, Bad Grandpa. He has that comedic side to a T, but we've also seen kind of stellar performances in The Greatest Showman. He's been to have a kind of a role where he's not just seen as that comic actor. So he can bring two sides of film together and produce something really good in this. And I think a brilliant kind of counter to Zac Efron as the Human Torch, someone that you need to play off pretty well, that has that experience, and we'll see as a villain, a hero in the new Suicide Squad movie coming out, Peacemaker. I want John Cena to be the Thing. He's got that very tough guy exterior along with soft, good-hearted nature, and that's the kind of the perfect symbolism for the Thing, and that's exactly what John Cena can bring. Now, I want Mad Doctor Doom to be someone that's got familiarity with the Fantastic Four franchise. I want my Doctor Doom to be the original Mr. Fantastic from the 2005 film, Ioan Gruffudd. He knows the franchise well, as I said, and after like chilling performances such as he was the main villain in the ITV drama Liar, where you don't believe he's the villain to begin with, but has that conniving, manipulating, not cheating, but kind of cunning way of getting what he wants, and that's exactly what Victor Von Doom is. He's a cunning character and tries to manipulate his way to get what he wants, and ultimately be menacing at the end. And I think that with strong performance like that in his locker, I think Ioan Gruffudd can absolutely do that. So that is my Fantastic Four recast.
The more great choices from Jack. I'm loving it. David, have at it.
Well, it's interesting, but there's the first question I need to ask you is this, Jack. You've cast John Krasinski, and I can't argue that Charlize Theron would be absolutely pitch perfect in the role of Sue Storm. You listed her credentials. I don't need to go on about that. I actually 100% agree with you. But do you not think there would be a lot of backlash. If you're going to cast John Krasinski in the lead role and you're not going to go with Emily Blunt, surely it's both or none. Surely it's not worth the media storm, pardon the pun, that would come with omitting her from that role. Isn't it more trouble than it's worth?
No, I wouldn't say so. I feel that it would just be unnecessary drama because, as you've seen, his wife isn't one to have any part with it. So I don't see why it should be an issue in the first place. It's just I think it's just the media trying to create something out of nothing, and I don't think that would stop John pursuing not a life-changing role, but have that commanding role in movie history, so to speak, as we go forward. We know how etched in history the MCU is, and I think he would really want to be a part, like a slice of that pie going forward. And I don't think something like that would stop it.
No, I don't think it would stop them. The media storm, though, I do think undeniably would be there and could give the movie some bad juju. Now, I can't. Charlize Theron, perfect. Zac Efron, phenomenal casting. My issue here is with the guy you can't see. All right, surprised you didn't cast him as the Invisible Woman. It's John Cena. All right. Now, I like John Cena for what he does. I think John Cena has a very specific skill set when it comes to acting that he utilizes really, really well. But I think the thing has a certain pathos about him. There's a tragedy to his story. There's a lot that he has to, again with the puns, wrestle with in these movies. You know what I mean? Do you think that John Cena has demonstrated the dramatic chops to be able to pull off that storyline? And if he doesn't, does that not mean that we're going to get a really one-note thing, which could seem a waste of the character?
I think that he's probably not had as many dramatic performances as you said. I've kind of a lot of the reasoning behind it was that I feel they could play off Zac Efron well for that comedic aspect, but we've not seen many kind of true to life stories in the wrestling as well. But when he's needed to get passionate and into heartiness of his promo work in the wrestling, we see he's absolutely capable of doing it, and we can see that he can put any ounce of emotion into promos that he gives, and he means every word by it. I don't see how he not maybe it wouldn't. I don't think he'd fail at doing it. I do think he would succeed, and as we say, we've not had that before, and I think it is definitely worth taking that shot with him trying.
Yeah, I think that's a respectable answer, and actually, you might have sold me on it a wee bit. However, Ewan Griffith, right? I agree with you. I actually liked him in those Fantastic Four movies. I actually liked him, and I think it was 102 Dalmatians. He starred in also. All right. Enjoyed it. I think he's a fine actor. However, this Doctor Doom. He's got to have a presence about him. He's got to have a menace about him. And as much as you tried to sell me on it, I'm not sure I'm buying it. I'm not buying what you're selling, Jack. I don't think that he has the gravitas to pull off the Doctor Doom that we need to see. It's a nice story, actor coming back to play the opposite role, but you're going to need to do a lot more to convince me of that casting, Jack. So go for it.
Genuinely, the main that's part of my crux of it. But honestly, the villain role he plays in the 2 seasons of Liar kind of sold me as to why he could be that Doctor Doom. He is very conniving, manipulative, cunning, and that's everything Doctor Doom is. I know you want that huge presence, that overarching presence. And I think that, I don't know, he's not that he was young when he did it to begin with, but he's a much more vastly experienced actor, much more mature. And I do think he can give that maturity to the role. I do think he'd give the seriousness and the heart and the desire that's needed to fulfill the presence needed for Doctor Doom.
All right. I'm still unsure, but for now, the prosecution rests.
Hard fought defence for Jack. David, I'm sorry, I can't believe that you're saying that the guy who pisses on people for money and horrible bosses can't play Doctor Doom. What? Come on now.
That's not Doctor Doom. That's Loki. If anything, he would have been a good variant of Loki in the Loki show. I would have been all up for that. But I don't know. I'm not sure I'm sold on Victor Von Doom for our Welshman over there. No buying it.
Very interesting. I haven't actually watched the show that Jack's talking about, but my girlfriend did, and she actually would, like, after watching an episode, would actually be visibly annoyed and frustrated at how much of a like evil dick the character that he plays is in the show. So I can vouch for like the caliber of his villain acting has evolved in recent years. He's a long way from Titanic, but nevertheless, let's move on for our final panelist. Last but certainly by no means least, we have Adam. Adam, can you come in with a last-minute steal?
I'm certainly going to try. For my casting choices, I've tried to go quite close to the comics, as quite often is my role on this show. A lot of time I'm a guy who has read a lot of the comics, and I think that's what I've tried to go for. I think, as I've said, I've hinted at it a few times, is that I want a kind of comic accurate portrayal of these characters. I've tried to go in for that with the kind of age range of actors and also the qualities I want them to portray. I'm going to start off with, I'm going to go back to front. I'm going to start with Doctor Doom because that is the order I came up with them in. For my Doctor Doom, I'm casting Jamie Dornan. I think he's the perfect choice. I think he's got presence. I think he's got that manipulative side. He's also can show that depth. You know, I think the last time David was on the show, I think I mentioned Jamie Dornan in passing, but we've seen him in The Fall. He's just excellent. I think he can give us a comic accurate Doctor Doom. I think he's got that depth, and I just think, as I said, for me, Doctor Doom, you know, that's where it's got to land, and I think this is just perfect, and I think that's where I've gone from. For Mr. Fantastic, I've gone with Andrew Garfield. Now, it's maybe a bit of a surprise when you think of it. You know, you think of maybe kind of playing that kind of young character, because a lot of his previous roles, but he's 37, and I think he's ready to play Mr. Fantastic. A few years ago, I think it would have been the wrong choice, but I think he's a perfect character to show off that kind of almost single-minded drive for this kind of perfect world in his own mind. I think he could play that flawed genius, and I think as an actor, he's ready to show us that kind of to step up into that mature side, which is something that I think people forget Reed Richards doesn't have straight away, and I think it's something that he learns throughout his experience in the Fantastic Four, and I think Andrew Garfield's a perfect person to illustrate that. For my Invisible Woman, I've gone with Emma Watson, and I think that something's been a real flaw. Jack mentioned it. I think his choice of Charlize Theron was a great choice. It's a poor representation of Sue Storm is another, I think, fatal flaw of the Fantastic Four films we've seen so far. If you've read the comics, you know she is the backbone of the team. She's the one that comes through in the tight moments. She's the one that they almost wouldn't be there if it wasn't for her. She's just got I think a kind of mother role within the team, and I think that she's very important. And I think the reason why I've gone for Emma Watson is, you know, she's already shown a pretty obvious example in Harry Potter when she plays Hermione. She is that person who's, you know, she's got everyone's back. She holds it all together. She just works silently. She doesn't want the glory, but then she comes through when the team really needs her. I think she's maybe the most talented actor I've picked here, and I think she's absolutely made for this part. For the Human Torch, I've gone with Ansel Elgort. I think it's the Human Torch. He gets harshly treated in the comics. I think when you go for the comics, I think someone's got to miss out, and it's often the Human Torch. I think it is a bit of a shame, but you know he's a cocky character with a lot to learn. I think Ansel can pull that off. No worries at all. I think he's also shown that he's got that depth he can show later on. He can develop the character. For the Thing, I mean, I couldn't believe we had almost, for me, comedic picks in John Cena and The Rock for the Thing. I think, you know, David touched on it, underappreciated character. He's got a lot of depth, and that's why I've gone with Jesse Plemons to play him. Ben Grimm is someone he's fiercely loyal. He might not have the brains of Reed or the confidence of Johnny, but his strengths come from his quiet loyalty to the rest of the team. He's someone you can rely on. He's almost in Reed Richards' shadow, but he doesn't mind being there. That's not what he's about. I think he's a soft-spoken guy who, once again, a lot like Sue Storm, you quite often see them team up for a reason. They're the two that come through in the crucial moments. I think Jesse Plemons is an excellent choice. I think he's shown he's definitely got that soft-spoken side, and I just think it would be good to see that on screen instead of just the Thing, you know, it's clobbering time, running about mad. I think the key thing I've gone with these actors, and the reason why I think is that it's not just their acting ability and what they can show for the character. It's also, I think, the growth of these characters long term. David and I have talked about we want them to be a linchpin, and I think that's what I've gone with here. These are all characters who can grow as the franchise grows, who we can see a lot of, and I can see a long string of successful movies with these actors at the centre. Thank you.
Controversial, bold, inspired. David, your cross-examination, if you please.
Jesse Plemons. What a shout. What a shout. That is blowing me out of the water. By far the best thing casting choice I've heard so far. Before I interrogate you, Adam, I'm going to give you another minute. Tell us more about Jesse Plemons. Tell us why people should love him out there. Use this podcast as a platform to just shout from the hilltops about good old Jesse. Go for it, Adam.
I think Jesse Plemons for me is one of these actors who's just got unbelievable depth. He can play. I think honestly, you could give him any character, I think, and he would play it. You could give him a script, a character to play, and he'll make you feel what the writer wants you to feel about a character. First time I seen him was actually in Black Mirror, where he plays a pretty pathetic guy. And you know what? It may be a bit harsh on Ben Grimm, but I think that was one of the things that kind of made me think of him, was that he's someone who, your audience, you can feel sympathy for in a lot of ways. And I think that you get him on board, I think you'd get a Thing fan club, and I'm sure it wouldn't be long, like Loki, where we get our own Thing solo series. Not that I'm saying that's what I want, but I think that if anyone would deserve it, it'd be Jesse Plemons.
I think that's inspiring casting right there. Ansel Elgort, I think, is a troublesome one. He's got a lot of bad juju around him, a lot of accusations and stuff floating around right now. I reckon you'd want to stay away from that. Here's a big question for you, Adam. Okay? Andrew Garfield and Emma Watson. My theory of this is they would have been great had you been making this movie 5 years ago. Do you think the star power of these two actors has just fallen too far down for them to be truly impactful, not only at the box office, but just in terms of public perception and interest in this movie? Nowadays for this Fantastic Four reboot, do you still stand by that they would work?
I think they absolutely would. I think as much as maybe I agree Emma Watson, her kind of star in terms of filmmaking has fallen a little bit, I think she's still a big public figure, and I think people would probably go to see it just for her. She's a huge political figure at times. I think the fact with the two of them, I think a lot of people, we haven't seen them necessarily in these kind of roles. Obviously, we have seen Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, but I think seeing him as part of a team, seeing how they'd work off each other, I think people would see it and they would go, you know what, it is a chance. Like, they wouldn't think of it and they go, oh, really? And then they go, well, I'd give it a chance. I think it's something that it would surprise people. I think like a lot of the casting choices that have come out the MCU so far, you're maybe a bit surprised when you read about it. And then, you see the first shots of the character and costume, and then you see the film and you're like, wow, why would I ever doubt that choice? I think that's what we'd see with these two.
I think Adam's put forward a good case there, but we'll see how it affects the final decision.
And that's it. All of our pitches are in, and what pitches they were. If it were up to me, you'd all be winners, but sadly it's not up to me, it's up to David. And David, have you reached a decision, or would you like a bit more time to ponder over the choices?
I would actually like to hear two people go head to head in a pick, because there's two that I'm actually torn between. Because I'm going to run this down and give points based off who won for each cast member and reach the decision that way. I would like to hear Adam and Lewis go head to head on their Doctor Dooms. I want to hear about Vigo versus Jamie. Lewis, you have the floor first, sir.
All right, okay. Vigo is someone who's adapted over time to his ability and age, and as we've seen from playing the big hero in The Return of the King, he's slowly kind of made his way to a bit more depth. Now he's taken time off and he's taken range breaks for years, but there's something about Vigo as a talent when it comes to being able to be a very, very commanding presence, almost in a sort of, I don't want to say Hannibal Lecter way, but almost in that sort of like, it's like a car crash. But a good version of it. Like you just get drawn in. You can't see it. You can't turn away. It's just you're fascinated by his performance. But also, when it comes to Doctor Doom, Adam will know more than me. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am a Fantastic Four buff. But Doctor Doom, to me, on the research for this particular show, yes, he's a very, very commanding villain and involved in almost everything. But there's an element of sympathy to him. There's an element of, you cannot see yourself in the guy, but you can see where he's coming from. And it doesn't seem so far-fetched. And to me, Vigo can create that sort of atmosphere around his performances where you feel just so engrossed and enamored by what's going on the screen, you forget you're watching a film. That's how good this man is. And I think a lot of people kind of go to the Lord of the Rings performances and don't quite see the stuff he's done over the last 20 years or so. And Vigo, I think, deserves that sort of last drop the mic moment. I am the shit. And I want to see him do that.
Strong. Adam, you're going to need to fight for this one. Tell me why, as a 90s boy band once said.
I think Lewis put forward a great argument there. It's funny, I actually did think about Viggo Mortensen for my Doctor Doom, but I decided not to go with him.
Bollocks. No, I don't believe it.
Jack, if you are you competing this head to head?
No.
Sorry, I just can't.
To say he was going to go for them and then decided against them is a good debating technique, I have to say. I respect it, even if it is a lie. On you go, Adam.
No, but I'm not going to say I went against them because it's a bad choice, because I don't think that Viggo Mortensen's a bad choice. I'm not here to bash Lewis, but one of the things that it was brought up, I think, is the age of the actor. Jamie Dornan is only, and I like to be accurate here, he's only 39. And he's similar age to Andrew Garfield, which I think is important. I think when you remember that the two characters of Doctor Doom and Reed Richards, they do have a relationship before the Fantastic Four. They did know each other in uni, and there was an instant dislike. I think you've got two guys in Jamie Dornan and Andrew Garfield that could really play well off each other. I think when you consider the characters and the way we've seen them, I think we've definitely seen Jamie Dornan shows that he can show a lot of depth, a real dark, twisted past, which, you know, is what happened to Doctor Doom. It wasn't necessarily all his fault. He's had a hard life. His mum was kidnapped by Mephisto, for God's sake. She's in hell. I mean, pretty obviously you're going to come out of that a bit cracked. And I think we could see, I think Jamie Dornan gives us the best chance of seeing someone who's maybe where they are, not by their own choice, but someone who has absolutely gone over to the dark side, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think that, as I've said, someone who can be in the franchise for a long time, and I think that is key here. He's someone I think you could interact with a lot of other characters we've got on screen right now, a lot of MCU characters. You could definitely see him playing well off in my mind. He could work well with a lot of MCU villains as well. So I just think, for me, that's why Jamie Dornan's a great choice for the role.
Oh, Lewis, I think I'm ready to make my decision now. Is that okay?
You know what? Yes.
Listen, all right. I have to give the Ben Grimm point. No, sorry, the Victor Von Doom point to Lewis. It has to be Viggo Mortensen. And Adam, I think you made really strong arguments for Jamie Dornan. You almost convinced me, especially with the age thing. I want a Victor Von Doom who's going to be in this for the long run, but I think Viggo's got 10 good years left in him. That's my opinion. And there was one word that Lewis said to me on the Victor Von Doom point, and that was atmosphere. And I don't think that Dornan can bring the same atmosphere with him as Viggo can. It's behind the eyes or something there, man. So a point goes to Lewis on that one. As for the Ben Grimm thing point, Adam, you have completely blown that out of the water, tying it up there. I think Jesse Plemons, enough said. Perfect shout. When it came to Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, Lewis again wins it for me, purely because I just think that Efron, I just think he's a bit past his day. I don't think he has the power that he once had. I don't think he can handle the pathos in the same way that Boyega can. And Ansel Elgort, as I've already said, there's a bit of a touchy situation going on there. So Lewis has two. When it comes to Sue Storm, Jack, you got yourself back in the battle with this one, my man. Oh my good God almighty. Charlize Theron, I've seen what she did in Atomic Blonde. I've seen what she did as Furiosa. This is a Sue Storm we haven't seen on screen the point for Mr. Fantastic, I said I wanted things that were out of left field, but Ewan McGregor and Andrew Garfield, as good as they are, just didn't inspire me. And I think one of you said it best. It wasn't even Jack, but it convinced me for Jack's argument. I think it was you, Adam. You said he grows into that maturity. And I just thought to myself, like Jim in The Office then. So I have to give it to John Krasinski, even though I hate myself for it, because it's the obvious shout. So it's Adam. Jesse Plemons, I'll always love you for that, but you're out of this, my man. It's between Lewis and Jack, and it basically comes to The Rock versus John Cena. It's like WrestleMania all over again. I despise the fact that it came down to that.
Once in a lifetime 3.
I'm going to take the behind the scenes stuff out of it and just ask myself who I would rather see on screen in a Fantastic Four movie. John Cena as an actor just hasn't proved it to me yet. I have to go with The Rock. I have to go with Lewis. Lewis wins the day on this particular occasion.
Well done. Well done. Well done.
I'm quite happy with that, but if I'm honest, I kind of wish I just picked Brendan Fraser.
If you picked Brendan Fraser, it wouldn't be a discussion. You would have had the 3 points.
But I like drama. I like suspense. It creates an atmosphere.
Like Vigo, just like Vigo.
I'm quite chill for that. I did try and put a decent amount of thought in this, and Stewart knows I've messaged him constantly. He's probably had enough of me constantly asking questions. What about this? Do you think about this? He never answered any questions. He was just there to be a wall for me to throw the ball at. So Stewart, I appreciate it. You have a hand in this victory too.
Whoa! I'm an impartial host here. No, you guys all came up with. I was saying to you guys before we even started that you guys brought your A game, each and every one of you. This was a very hard fought victory for Lewis, but you all did absolutely fantastic. Lewis just cinched it, and we have our winner with Lewis. So thank you to David. It has been amazing having you back on the show. You are welcome anytime. Thanks again for your critiques, your judgment, your effort into choosing this week's winner.
Oh my God, they didn't make it easy. I tell you, the last time I was on, I think there was kind of a sort of clearer winner. This time it was tough, man. It was tough. The easiest decision I had tonight was by far Jesse Plemons. Thank you for that again, Adam. That's my new Holly Hunter for this time. Jesse fucking Plemons. Pitch me a Holly Hunter and Jesse Plemons movie next time. It's an automatic victory.
We'll have to have you back for that. You have the floor, just in case there's anything you'd like to plug to the audience. Let them know where they can find you on the social medias, on the podcast platforms.
Yeah, go and find me, David Campbell _5 on Twitter. You can find all I'm doing over there. Keep an eye out for maybe some new footage from a movie coming out, an FCL match. I'm on Saturday Draft Live with Jack Graham and Eat Sleep Suplex Retreat every Saturday, funnily enough. So just see what's happening. Yeah, see what's happening.
Check him out, guys. He is well worth the follow. Thanks to our panel, Adam, Jack and Lewis, for another great round of pitches. A round of applause, I think, for all the pitches today.
Yes.
Before we go, Jack, would you like to let the audience know what's coming up in the next episodes?
Oh yeah, of course. The next episode I will be putting Lewis, Stewart, Adam and the returning Reese to try and make an improvement on the latest MCU TV series on Disney Plus, Loki. That will be our next feature episode for the podcast.
That's us going against the grain. We're just, you know what? I thought we'll tackle some MCU for a change.
Marvel shows. Marvel
exactly.
shows.
Well, do you know what, David? If DC put out something good, maybe we'd tackle it. And with that, if you want to catch that episode, don't forget to find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Just look for The Big Picture. And if you'd like to vote on which pitch you heard today was best, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Just search for @_The Big Picture. That, sadly, is all we have time for. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will catch you in the next one.